BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
From BBC Radio 4, this is Things Fell Apart, Season 2.
Teachers were being trained that parents in this area are a danger to their children. I was not a danger to my child.
This story is about a difficult relationship between a parent and her child, one that fell apart during lockdown, and how it was weaponised by a politician in his quest for power. It's about how two sets of equally held convictions collided with each other. But the story starts in the tiny town of Canby in the forests of Oregon. The same forests, as it happens, where the family of Twilight fans were terrorised in my episode about Antifa.
If you are a fan of Twilight, it is giving Twilight vibes. Very much forests with fog.
This is Brandon Wolfe. Brandon's mother died when he was 11, and he was raised by his stepfather, a man he struggled to get along with.
It started with the discovery of this white supremacist cell in high school. My friend at the time discovered that they were operating in a MySpace group, and she infiltrated it. She relayed that information to the school. The principal was basically like, boys will be boys. You should let it go.
But Brandon's friend didn't want to let it go. She felt that this was more serious than schoolboys being idiots on MySpace. She saw it as an actual white supremacy cabal.
And so she leaked that information to the media, and all of a sudden we had, news cameras descending on the school.
Brandon is mixed race, and so he saw the group as a threat to his safety at high school.
When I finally worked up the courage to tell my dad, he basically responded with a shrug. He was like, maybe they have a point. Maybe their ideas are valid. We just didn't get each other. He didn't get me. He didn't understand how painful those words might be. It was challenging because you're young, you're a kid, and that's the space that's supposed to be safe for you is the kitchen dinner table. I just felt deeply alone.
And so Brandon left home, dropped out of college, moved to Orlando, and got a job at Disney World.
Every day I went to work and was surrounded by other lost boys who had found their way to Disney. It really is a mecca for young queer people.
And were you a character? Were you goofy or something?
I performed as Tigger a lot. You never really know how strong your will is until it is August in Florida and you are wearing a rug jumping around. And what I discovered in Orlando is there were places in this world where I could just be me. And one of the first real places that I discovered that was Pulse nightclub. Orlando has a beautiful, burgeoning, queer nightlife, and Pulse at that time really felt like the epicenter of it.
Cut to June the 11th, 2016. Brandon and his best friends, Drew and Juan, were trying to figure out what to do that night.
It was Saturday, it was laundry day, I was folding socks and underwear on the couch. Drew and Juan were on a date at SeaWorld, and when the day wound to a close, I did the most normal thing. I texted Drew and Juan and asked if they wanted to get a drink. And when it came time to decide where to go, we decided to go to Pulse nightclub. The line was as long as it ever was outside. There was always this sort of angry, scowling drag queen that would sit at the front door there to snatch your $5, and she was there that night. You would part this beaded, shimmery doorway and go through the dance floor.
The three of them danced for a few hours, and then it was last orders, 2 a.m.
Drew and Juan were going to finish their last dance in their favorite spot on the dance floor. And I was going to go to the bathroom, and then we'd call an Uber and go home. I remember stepping into the bathroom. I remember there was this plastic cup sitting on the edge of the sink with some squished limes in the bottom, looking like it might tumble to the floor with just the lightest gust of wind. And I distinctly remember the first sound of gunshots. I remember the hair standing up on the back of my neck, the smell of blood and gun smoke that started to waft into the room. I remember the faces of about a dozen people who rushed into the bathroom looking for safety, like they had seen the purest form of evil. I remember the girl behind me trying so hard not to scream so we wouldn't be found that I could feel her vibrating against the tiles underneath me. And I remember locking arms with that dozen people and making a break for it. I remember telling myself not to look left into the dance floor, keeping my eyes fixed on this sliver of light in the back of the room from an emergency exit door. And then I remember the door flinging open, and I also remember how fleeting that sense of relief was when I realized that Drew and Juan were wrapped in each other's arms underneath their favorite disco ball, right in that man's line of fire. He fired over 110 rounds from that assault rifle into the club. 19 of them struck and killed Drew and Juan, and they became 2 of the 49 mostly LGBTQ people of color who were murdered that night.
That was June the 12th, 2016. 4 years later, and 250 miles away in Tallahassee, Florida, a family called the Littlejohns were trying to make the best out of lockdown, unaware that their lives and Brandon's would soon collide, and many other lives would get impacted as a result.
At the beginning in Florida, the lockdown rules were pretty strict, right? At the very beginning. What was that like?
We just really tried to make it silly so that the kids weren't scared.
This is January Littlejohn, a stay-at-home mother of 3.
We would have Dress Up Friday, where I would dress up in a costume. But after that 2 weeks was up and we slowly started to realize that things weren't going to go back to normal, that's when my daughter's mental health started to really deteriorate.
January means her oldest daughter, then aged 13. We've had no contact with her daughter during the making of this programme. January says she's very protective over her privacy, and so we only have January's telling of the story to go on. Her daughter has ADHD, January says, and lockdown was making it hard for her to concentrate on her schoolwork.
This is work that should have taken her 30 minutes to do, and she would spend hours in front of the computer. It was just excruciating.
And something else was worrying January, the culture her daughter was starting to enjoy.
My daughter had difficulty fitting in. She's extremely naturally artistic. And when she initially started 6th grade, she found a friend group that seemed to be interested in the same quirky books and activities that she was.
What kind of books?
A lot of fantasy. They were just, quirky books like Wings of Fire, Warrior Cats, just books that maybe other kids aren't necessarily into. We were thrilled and we were excited that she was making friends and they all seemed to get along well. But then we started to see some red flags.
Because of lockdown, parents were becoming more privy to what their children were doing online, in their virtual classrooms and their social lives too. January's daughter and her friends, like other fans of Warrior Cats, were speculating on which of the Warrior Cats might be gay or non-binary or trans.
And most, if not all of these children had no romantic experience, but yet all of them were identifying as some identity in the LGBTQ spectrum. So it ranged from bisexuality to pansexual to gay, and then those slowly started to morph into the transgender identities.
And then it was May 2020, an extraordinary month in the evolution of the culture wars. That month saw the first airing of Judy Mikovits's Plandemic and the murder of George Floyd and the protests that followed. The men accused of plotting to kidnap the governor of Michigan planned their first meeting that month too. And now an important new battlefront in an already ferocious culture war was about to begin, right there in January's house, with January's daughter coming to her parents with some news.
So the lockdown happened in March of 2020, and she came to her father and I in May, and she said she didn't feel like a girl. And we were completely caught off guard. Several of her friends had come out as gender fluid or non-binary. And I think I even said to her at one point, statistically, this is impossible. Transgender identities are very rare. And she was just very flippant about it. Oh, well, so-and-so just changed his name. She would use the proper pronouns that the child wanted.
Panicked, January started to Google.
I was unaware of non-binary and gender fluid and transmasculine. And if you Google, I think we're up to 72 different identities to choose from. Children are being taught that you can be a boy, a girl, neither, or both. I mean, literally anything goes. You have children starting to identify as part animals called furries. And as a parent, when you're trying to get information, very little comes up other than you need to affirm, and that not affirming is harmful and could even lead to suicide. We love our children more than anything in this entire world. And for any parent, the mention of suicide is enough to bring you to your knees.
But January didn't want to affirm because she thought that her child was just going through a phase.
She had no previous distress over her sex at all. And I suspected at the time it was through her friend group. She had latched on to her gender being the reason for all of the discomfort she had ever had. And she genuinely thought that this was the solution. This was all escalating very quickly. She was casually talking about hormones, asking questions about puberty blockers. And so I reached out to a teacher. I let the teacher know what was going on, that we were not affirming at home. And I left it with the teacher that I'm going to let my daughter handle this.
January emailed the teacher, quote, "She is currently identifying as non-binary and prefers the pronouns they, them. I told her if she wants to go by her new name with her teachers, I won't stop her. I'm going to let her take the lead on this." She added that the school should do, quote, "whatever you think is best." And then, at the end of August 2020, Florida schools reopened.
One day you picked your daughter up from school and she mentioned a meeting that she'd had with the school.
Yes, that's correct. My daughter got into the car a couple of weeks after school had started and she said, "Mom, I had a meeting today at school and I changed my name, but they asked me which restroom I wanted to use." I was immediately taken back. She's a female. It never occurred to me that they could have a meeting with my child without inviting me. I immediately emailed the guidance counselor. When they called me back, they said they could not tell me anything that occurred at the meeting because my daughter was now protected by a non-discrimination law.
Eventually, January discovered that the school had completed a 6-page support plan with her child. It included questions like, which sex do you prefer to room with on overnight field trips? And how should we refer to you when speaking to your parents?
And this was to effectively deceive parents that these plans were even taking place.
Oh, you mean like if you want us to not tell your parents, we won't?
Correct. They were colluding with children to keep secrets from parents.
And how was your relationship with your daughter at this point?
It created a huge wedge because she was celebrated for this, where she wasn't celebrated when she was just a normal girl student going to school. What you have to understand is social transitioning is the first step toward medical transitioning. So we were horrified, we were scared, and we felt like we were the only ones not cheering her along this path of self-harm.
January did some digging, and she discovered that the school, like schools all over Florida, had been working with a particular group to devise their LGBTQ support plans, a group called Equality Florida.
And by 2020, Equality Florida had trained and partnered with 64 out of the 67 counties. All had adopted these LGBTQ guides. Teachers were being trained that parents in this area are a danger to their children. Coming out can literally result in abuse or homelessness. It actually said that in the guide. I was not a danger to my child. I wanted to know, how did this get into our school system so fast?
So how did it happen? How did Equality Florida manage to partner so successfully with schools all over the state? The answer is the Pulse nightclub shooting.
Six days after the shooting on Saturday, we had a funeral service for Drew, and I got to be a pallbearer that day. When we got to the front of the church, I looked down at his casket and I made a promise to him, just a quiet one between the two of us. I promised him that I would never stop fighting for a world that he would be proud of. And I immediately started volunteering for political campaigns and organizations like Equality Florida.
Brandon worked full-time at Equality Florida until 2023. Just when he first joined, a decision was made inside the group.
If we were going to stop things like Pulse from happening in the future, then we had to go to the source and uproot that hatred and bigotry where it starts. And so in the summer of 2016, Equality Florida launched the Safe and Healthy Schools program. And the goal was working alongside school districts to help reimagine a school system that treats all students with dignity and respect and tells LGBTQ students that they are perfect exactly as they are.
So January Little John says that Equality Florida's training in schools leads to parents.
I read Brandon the passage from the school guide that says that parents in this area might be a danger to their children.
Obviously, you came from a family where things weren't great with your father, but what's the thinking behind it?
So Equality Florida doesn't implement policy in schools. Equality Florida makes recommendations and helps work on support resources with schools. Sometimes the student is going to share something with a teacher before they're ready to talk about it with their parents. And so it is incredibly irresponsible for a teacher to take this trusted information and immediately run to the nearest phone, pick it up, call the parent and say, by the way, I think your kid might be gay.
I think the reason why January got so angry is because her child was 13 years old and until just a few weeks earlier had never had a problem with their gender identity and so on. You know, this was going around her child's friend group. Her nightmare vision was that the next thing she knew, there'd be some medical transitioning going on. And the school knew about all of this kind of in concert with Equality Florida, but she was oblivious to it all.
Listen, I value the voice of a concerned parent, of course. Unfortunately, there is a concerted right-wing effort right now to paint transgender people as contagious, as a virus in society. And this idea that one day someone walks into your kid's classroom or follows them on TikTok, convinces them to become trans, and the next day they're walking into a plastic surgeon and saying, I think I'll take the double mastectomy today. That is not how any of that happens.
The truth is, in 2020 in Florida, when it came to gender reassignment surgery for minors, doctors followed the guidelines of the American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Medical Association, both of which suggested that doctors affirm and work with each child on an individual, tailored basis. Quote, considering the risks and benefits to each patient's unique circumstances while making every effort to be aware of the doctor's own biases. But that's not the case in Florida anymore, for reasons you'll discover. Soon after the altercation with the school, January went public. She gave speeches and interviews. Sometimes, it has to be said, leaving out an important fact. As the school district later told CNN, January had, quote, clearly instructed school staff via email to allow the child to take the lead on this and to do whatever you think is best.
It's difficult for me to watch her use her story as a bludgeon against our community, while she often fails to mention that she told the school district to go ahead and trust the child on how they should be respected in school.
But January says she would never have said those things to the school if she knew where it would lead.
I knew nothing about support plans or guides, so I don't know how it's even possible for me to consent to something I did not even know existed.
In her speeches, January denounced groups like Equality Florida for their impact on schools.
They have infiltrated the classrooms and they are usurping parental authority. Putting guardrails in place for what is appropriate in the classroom is absolutely necessary under these situations.
She sued the school too, but lost and is now appealing. And she contacted Casey DeSantis, the wife of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. DeSantis knew that lockdown meant that parents could suddenly see into their children's classrooms, and some of them didn't like what they saw, and he was tapping into that unease. He declared 2022 the year of the parent. As he began lining himself up to enter the race for president, he started telling January's story, a lot, often embellishing the details.
We had a mother from Leon County, and her daughter was going to school. Some of the people at school decided that her daughter was really a boy and wanted to identify as a boy. So they changed her name, they changed her, quote, pronouns, they did these things without telling the mother.
But the school didn't change her name, nor, as DeSantis claimed in other speeches, did they have her dress like a boy.
Some people in the school had decided that the daughter was really a boy and not a girl. So they changed the girl's name to a boy's name, had her dress like a boy, and doing all this stuff without telling the mother.
I've watched videos of Ron DeSantis where he mentions your story. He does seem to exaggerate it and twist it in his speeches. So, for instance, they didn't have her dressed like a boy.
So much emphasis has been placed on that. The gaslighting I have experienced has been unreal. There are people that would rather focus on a detail like that than the actual violation that occurred with my daughter. And that is very frustrating to me.
In March 2022, DeSantis signed into law the Parental Rights in Education Bill, known by its critics as the Don't Say Gay Bill, because with some exceptions it bans teaching on sexual orientation or gender identity from kindergarten all the way through to high school graduation. DeSantis cited as an inspiration for his new law January herself. She stood right behind him as he signed it. His press secretary said that anyone who opposed the bill was, quote, probably a groomer, a term used to describe how paedophiles build relationships with their victims to abuse them.
We've got an all-star cast of folks here that are joining us. January Littlejohn, who's a parent from Leon County, who's going to speak.
January got her wish. It is now Florida law that a student's gender identity should be disclosed to parents if the school is making accommodations for it, like allowing the child to use a different bathroom. And the Don't Say Gay bill itself has created some startling ripples.
A fifth-grade teacher in Florida says she is under investigation after she showed her students Strange World, which is a 2022 animated Disney film that features a character who is both biracial and gay.
Since last year, the district and school board have banned or restricted more than a dozen books and are currently evaluating roughly 200 more. One of those, quote, inappropriate books is And Tango Makes Three, a picture book based on the true story of two male penguins at the Central Park Zoo who raised a chick together.
Michelangelo's classic David statue is the center of controversy in a Florida classroom. A private school principal in Florida resigned over it. According to the Tallahassee Democrat, she was ousted by angry parents after the Renaissance masterpiece was shown to sixth graders at Tallahassee Classical School.
A lot of people are looking at what's happening in Florida and thinking, wow, he's really using stories like yours to sort of hammer people with the heavy hand of government.
I don't know any parent that has that viewpoint. I don't have experience with any of the things that you're asking me, frankly. I really am just coming at this as a mom.
But really, January is a mother and an activist. And activism is often all about using words that escalate things, that up the temperature. For instance, despite Brandon saying,
There is a concerted right-wing effort right now to paint transgender people as contagious, as a virus in society.
It hadn't been crazy for January to worry that her 13-year-old was going through a phase influenced by her friend group. And January, in turn, makes it sound like stories like hers were sweeping Leon County's schools.
They have infiltrated the classrooms and they are usurping parental authority.
But according to the school district, there were fewer than 10 LGBTQ support plans among a population of 33,000 students. When the boundaries of facts and fairness are pushed at so hard, the ripples can send people haywire.
Hi, Lisa. Welcome.
Hi. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Still wrapping my brain around this a little bit, but yesterday I heard something.
Take the day in December 2021 when a Michigan mother, Lisa Hansen, stood up at her school board meeting.
I heard that at least one of our schools in our town has in one of the unisex bathrooms a litter box for the kids that identify as cats. I know it's going on nationwide. I know it is. It's part of the agenda that's being pushed. I don't even want to understand it. But I think that people need to be aware of it because I am really upset as a parent that my child is put in an environment like that.
It was an extraordinary claim. An American mother was saying that cat litter boxes, the places where cats use the toilet, were being put into schools for use by pupils who identify as cats. This was, as far as we can tell, the first time this allegation was made. But after that, it spread fast. Here's Nebraska State Senator Bruce Bosselman.
School children dress up as animals during the school day. They meow and they bark. And now schools are wanting to put litter boxes in the schools for these children to use. How is this sanitary? I even heard that a student identified as a cat, and the school didn't provide the litter box, so the student went ahead and defecated on the floor. Really? Really?
And here's the hugely successful podcaster, Joe Rogan.
My friend, his wife, is a school teacher. And she works at a school that had to install a litter box in the girls' room because there is a girl who's a furry who identifies as an animal. And her mother badgered the school until they agreed to put a litter box in one of the stalls.
It made it to the UK too. Here's Piers Morgan on Talk TV in June 2023. A year and a half after the original rumours began.
This stuff reads like a joke, but it's really not funny when you get into the weeds of it. This is limitless self-identity gone bonkers. Talking in cat language, including meowing, that is not just having a bit of fun being a cat. That is actually assuming the identity of an animal that this person is not, and then insisting everybody else conform to it.
Given how viral this story has gone, a great effort has been made by American journalists to track down a school where children identify as cats and are provided with litter boxes. Schools across the United States have been scrutinised, leads followed, rumours investigated, and no litter boxes have been found anywhere, except for here.
I'm Ryan Price, and I teach high school English in Vacaville, California at a school called Buckingham Collegiate Charter Academy.
When this rumour started to flourish, people looked far and wide for examples of classrooms where it may be true. And the closest that they got to was your classroom. Will you tell me the story?
Well, okay, so I have a popular social media account that I post to. So I made a video that I posted on my TikTok, which was just making light of the fact that students go to the bathroom too much during class just to get out of class. So I told them I'd set up a private bathroom in the classroom where they could use a bucket, and I would have a privacy screen set up for them and all this stuff. It was just meant to be funny. But people thought it was real. And I got a ton of complaints, and people started calling the school.
But the thing is, Ryan really did have a bucket in his class. So did all the classrooms in his school district, with some of them containing cat litter. And commentators wanted to know why. Was it because his students identified as cats?
And so I made a follow-up video explaining why we have these emergency buckets in the classroom.
Have you guys seen the comment section for our bathroom bucket video?
Yes, it's horrible.
I think a lot of people don't know why we have this bucket. Why? Why do we have this bucket?
We only have a bucket in case of some sort of hazmat emergency.
At this point in the video, Ryan's students throw guesses at him.
It could be something like that, but what's more typical, you guys? What do you think really prompted these buckets?
Finally, Ryan puts them out of their misery.
It's because of school shootings, you guys. Right? And I hate to just say it bluntly like that, but when I first started teaching, we didn't have these buckets in the classroom, but now every classroom has a bucket like this in there. That's the reality of school in America, right?
Ryan means that the buckets are emergency toilets in case students have to hide from a shooter for a long period.
So people being upset about our bucket video, they're upset about the wrong thing.
Let's think about this. Imagine a custodian going and cleaning litter boxes all day. Imagine kids who are already so self-conscious suddenly feeling comfortable enough to use the bathroom in a litter box in the classroom. It's just absurd.
When it became clear that the litter box rumours were a myth, Joe Rogan and the Nebraska state senator retracted their comments. But there's surely people out there who still believe it, given the dizzying way that the gender wars are fought. For me, the litter box story is a reminder that we can all fall for moral panics, and that the stronger a person's conviction, the more likely they'll succumb to untruths. And, as Ryan the teacher says, the litter box story was always, when you took a moment to think about it, very implausible. But I think this has also been a story about how there's sometimes a reluctance to accept that young children can be influenced by the media and friend groups, and schools can get caught in the middle, unsure of the best thing to do. And in the midst of it all is a child who, presumably, never wanted to be a pebble thrown in a pond, creating all of those ripples.
How's your child doing now?
I appreciate you asking that question. I am very protective over her privacy. This is her story to tell. She has desisted. She is free of any kind of confusion over her sex, but that is all I will say. It's taken a very long time and a very long road to repair our relationship, and we are still working on that.
Many culture warriors in the gender wars say that their freedom of speech is under attack. For the longest time, the battle over free speech was pretty much confined to college campuses. until suddenly it exploded out of colleges and into workplaces, including newsrooms. Next time on Things Fell Apart, a story that I think sheds light on one reason why that happened.
Are you hurting? If the answer is yes, you have trauma. And don't you ever let someone tell you that you don't.
Things Fell Apart was written and presented by me, Jon Ronson, and produced by Sarah Shebier. The music was composed by Phil Channel. The programme was mixed by Giles Aspen. The editor was Philip Sellers, and the commissioning editor was Dan Clark. It's a BBC audio production for BBC Radio 4 and BBC Sounds.
Hello, I'm India Axon, and I just want to quickly talk to you about witches. In this series from BBC Radio 4, simply titled Witch, I'm going to explore the meaning of the word today. It is a twisting, turning rabbit warren of a world, full of forgotten connections to land and to power, lost graves, stolen words, and indelible marks on the world. Because the story of the witch is actually the story of us all. Come and find out why on Witch with me, India Ackerson. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.